Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayeva Patitanam Pavan Ebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to our ongoing study of Srimad Bhagavatam at the level of Bhakti Vaibhava, and we're on Canto 3, Kapila Siksha, and this evening we're looking at chapter number 31. I'll share the screen with everyone. Okay, chapter 31 entitled The Movements of the Living Entities. So you'll remember, chapter 30, we were talking about, well, we heard about the unfortunate position of the materialistic man who dies a materialistic death, surrounded by his family members. And we heard about how he was taken to the Yamaraj, how he went to Yamaloka. And on the path to Yamaloka, was it a very comfortable journey? Do you remember? What happened to him on the way to Yamaloka? Yes? Who remembers?
Maharaj, he has been covered by the dogs are biting him or eating him.
Yes, the dogs. And what do these dogs represent?
Dogs basically remind him the previous karma and pain, whatever he has suffered previous janma, that will remind him.
Yes, it's different sinful activities, yes.
All sinful activities. And there is a fire around the both of sides, and a hot sun and no water, nothing there, no food.
Right, yes. No water, very thirsty. He's whipped and beaten and, oh, terrible. And then he took birth again after being punished in different hells, and then gradually came up to different species of life, lower species of life like animals, and then finally comes again to the human form of life. So we're going to hear this evening about how the living entity, how he takes birth in the womb, in the human body. All right, before we begin, we're going to quote here from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song, Bhuliya Tomari, Forgetting You. Would someone like to read? Any of you, any Bengalis here?
Maharaj, can I read this?
Yes.
Yeah. Bhuliya tomar samsare asiya, pe nana vidya vyatha. Tomar charan asiya ami, bolibo dukher katha. O Lord, having forgotten you and come to this material world, I have experienced a host of sins and sorrows. Now I approach your lotus feet and submit my tale of woe.
Well, you must know the song, huh?
Yeah. जननी जठरे चली म जाखोने विषम बंधन पासे एक बार प्रभु देखा दिया मोरे वांछिलो दीना दासे While I was bound up tightly in the unbearable confines of my mother's womb, O Lord, you once revealed yourself before me. After appearing briefly, you abandoned this poor servant of yours.
Oh, do you sing this song? Do you...
My sound is not good, but I can sing. I can try, since all God brothers and sisters and you're...
Sometimes the devotees sing it there, do they? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, text number 3.
3. તાખોને ભાવીનું જન્મ પાયા કોરીબે ભજન તવ જન્મ હોયલો પડી માયા જાલે ના હોયલો જ્ઞાન લવ. At that moment I thought, after my birth this time I will surely worship you with undivided attention. But alas, after taking birth, I fell into entangling network of worldly illusions. Thus I possess not even a drop of true knowledge.
Oh, very unfortunate. Eh?
આદરના છેલે સ્વજને કોલે હસ્યા કથાનું કાલા જનક જનની સ્નેહે તે ભૂલ્યા સંસાર લાગેલો ભાલો. As a dear son fondled in the laps of attentive relatives, I pass my time smiling and laughing. The affection of my father and mother helped me forget you still more, and I began to think that the material world was a very nice place.
Yeah. It's so familiar to all of us, right?
ક્રમે દીના દીના બાલક હોય એ ખેલીનું બાલક સહા આર કીછું દીને જ્ઞાન ઉપાજીલો પાથા પોડી આહાર આહા. Day by day I gradually grew into a young boy, began playing with other boys. Soon my powers of understanding emerged, so I diligently studied my school lessons every day. વિદ્યારે ગૌરવે ભ્રમી દેશે દેશે ધન ઉપાર્જન કોરી સ્વજને પાલન કોરી એક મને ભૂલીનો તમારા હરી. Proud of my accomplished education, I later traveled from place to place and earned much wealth. Thereby maintaining my family with undivided attention, I forgot you, O Lord Hari.
Certainly sounds so familiar to most of us, right?
બાર્ધક્ય કોન ભક્તિ વિનોદ કાંદિયા કાતારાતી ના ભજિયા તોરે દીના પ્રથા ગેલો એકો ન કી હવે ગતિ. Now in old age, this Bhakti Vinod very sadly weeps as death approaches. I failed to worship you, O Lord, and instead pass my day in vain. What will be my fate now?
So, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur has written very wonderfully describing such a common experience. Many people have this kind of experience in their life, that we go through life like that. And then at the end of life, then we are thinking, we realize we forgot to worship the Lord, we passed our days in vain. What will be my fate now? So we don't want to be in that condition. Thank goodness we've come to Krishna consciousness and we're preparing. We don't want to be in this condition at the time of death, that, oh, I passed my days in vain. No, we want to do something good with our time. Okay, so here's a review of what we've been covering in the chapters. The Kapila Siksha began in chapter 25 with Devahuti approaching her son for instruction, and we heard how she was saying, I'm bewildered by Maya. Please dispel my illusion. And she asked Lord Kapila, her son, what kind of bhakti should I perform to attain you easily? Explain the process of Jnana and Yoga. How many limbs do they have? And so she was asking these kind of questions. She wanted to know. Then chapter 26, we heard about Well, we heard a lot of Sankhya in chapter 26. It's described here as the path of Gyan. Remember in 26, all the different elements were analyzed, different categories of all the different elements and the sense organs and everything. And then chapter 27, 28, the method of liberation. 27 particularly was the method. 28 was more Ashtanga Yoga. 27 was Gyan. So the difference between the Jiva and the Prakriti, then the limbs of Ashtanga, description of the Lord's form for performing dharana. You remember chapter 28 was describing, we heard about the different bodily limbs. We heard first of all seeing the Lord overall, and then meditating on the different limbs, beginning from his lotus feet and working up to the smiling face of the Lord. So this was all for the Ashtanga Yogi. Then chapter 29, tell me about the path of bhakti. We heard about bhakti, how it could be also that people may be doing bhakti, but they may be very much influenced by the modes of nature. So although bhakti is always pure, but still they themselves are influenced by ignorance and passion and goodness. In the mode of ignorance, we want to do harm to others. In the mode of passion, we want to get some recognition for ourselves. In the mode of goodness, we want to get rid of our sinful reactions. And then pure devotional service is done simply for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna. So various classes of bhakti, and then the characteristics of pure bhakti, and please tell me about bhakti. So this was chapter 29, and here's the connection, coming right through chapter 30 and 31, answering these questions which were put by Devahuti back in chapter number 29. Connection with the previous chapter. Devahuti continued, my dear Lord, please also describe in detail, both for me and for people in general, the continual process of birth and death. For by hearing of such calamities, we may become detached from the activities of this material world. So Devahuti wanted to know about the continual process of birth and death. So we heard about death. Tonight we're going to hear about birth. And please also describe eternal time, which is a representation of your form, and by whose influence people in general engage in the performance of pious activities. So this was Devahuti's questions in chapter 29, text number 3 and 4. Okay, so here's the overview of the chapter. We're going to hear first of all about how the soul suffers in the mother's womb. People, of course, not always appreciate this, and we see there's things like abortion and so on. People think, oh, the child is not born yet, it's all right to kill it. But the soul suffering, whether you kill it or not, is suffering. It's a miserable condition to be in the mother's womb. So the first 10 verses will describe that, and then 11 to 21 we'll hear the prayers by the embryo in the womb. The child in the womb offered prayers. Not every child. We shouldn't think this is a general rule that all children in the womb will pray. But those children who had the habit of prayer in their previous life, then they will pray when they're in the womb. They will bring their habit with them. Then the chapter goes on, 22 to 31, forgetfulness after birth. Just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was describing in the song. We forget. After we take birth, we come out of the womb, and very quickly we forget everything. We forget all the misery we'd endured in the womb. We forget how we prayed to the Lord. And we try to enjoy the material world. Then we'll hear 32 to 42, the danger of bad association. A very powerful section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this part. The danger of bad association. And then finally, reclaiming our eternal nature. All right, so we want to cover all these sections this evening here, chapter 31. Let's see.
What is the next body you are going to get? You must have information.
teaching? You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, so this is your first lesson.
Hare Krishna. Okay, but we'll skip that one. Okay, I hope you appreciated that. This is a good summary of the chapter. Very graphical. Okay, here's the first text, an important verse, probably one of your memorization slokas, is it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, you can recite it, Mariji?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Karmana Daiva Netrena Jantur Dehopapattaye Striya Pravishta Udaram Pumso Reta Kanashrayaha. The personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the soul, is made to enter into the womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body.
Yes, so we take our birth according to two things, right? According to two things, the karma and the daiva netrena, and according to the Supreme Lord and according to the result of our work. So in this way we take a particular body. The bodies which we have just now are the representation of these two factors. The desire of the Lord and the result of our past work. So we have assumed a particular body and we take birth. Someone can read?
Rajesh Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam 331-2, Vedic embryology. On the first night, the sperm and the ovum mix, and on the fifth night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum. And after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be.
Keep reading.
SB 331-3. In the course of a month, a head is formed, and at the end of 2 months, the hands, the feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body, hair, bones, and skin appear, as do the organ of generation and the other apertures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and anus.
Yes, keep going.
SB 331-4. Within 4 months from the date of conception, the 7 essential ingredients of the body, namely child, blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, and semen, come into existence. At the end of 5 months, hunger and thirst make themselves felt, and at the end of 6 months, the fetus enclosed by the amnion begins to move on the right side of the abdomen.
Okay, so we saw that, of course, presented in the film which we just watched. It's all described there in Srimad Bhagavatam. And the point is that there's a very close similarity there between the results of modern science and the Vedic wisdom. What is all described in Srimad Bhagavatam has been confirmed by modern science. So scriptural revelation has been there for a long time. thousands of years. But only recently, what is told to us in Srimad Bhagavatam is being confirmed by the results of their technology mentioned here, things like microscopes, ultrasound, 3D scanning. Then they could understand everything. Whatever Srimad Bhagavatam said, it's all confirmed. So the advancement of modern technology broadens the limits of human sensory perception, simply come to confirm the authenticity of Vedic revelation. We spent hundreds of years to develop the technology to confirm what is already given to us in the Vedic literature. This is the foolishness of mankind. All right, would someone like to begin reading text number 5?
Sanatan Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Text 5. Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms. Text 6. Bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition. Text 7. Owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of this child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable.
So these are conditions which we've all experienced, but of course we don't have memory of these things. Although we've all been through these conditions, but to hear it described here in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like it's something new to us, because we've forgotten everything. But this is actually things which we've all been through. We've all been in the womb. We came through the womb, and we were in that condition. We were bitten by worms. We suffered so many things. But it's all forgotten. Someone else like to read now? Number 8.
Shankarshan Prabhuji.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.31.8. Place within the amnion and convert outside by the intestine, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen. His head turned towards his belly and his back and neck arched like a bow. Text 9. The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage without freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, he can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births, and he lives wretchedly. What is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition? Text 10. Thus endowed with the development of consciousness from the 7th month after his conception, the child is tossed downward by the airs that press the embryo during the week preceding delivery. Like the worms born of the same filthy abdominal cavity, he cannot remain in one place.
Okay. So, the Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't make it sound very pleasant, being in the womb. We often don't appreciate the condition. We don't appreciate the difficulties the child has to go through. But Srimad Bhagavatam very graphically describes to us all the difficulties, all the misery which is there in the womb. And then, someone can read?
Sharda Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my obeisances. Hare Krishna. Suffering in the womb. After birth, the child may forget about the difficulties of his past lives, but when we are grown up, we can at least understand the grievous tortures undergone at birth and death by reading the authorized scriptures like Shruna Bhagavatam. If we do not believe in the scriptures, that is a different question. But if we have faith in the authority of such descriptions, then we must prepare for our freedom in the next life. That is possible in this human form of life. One who does not take heed of these indications of suffering in human existence is said to be undoubtedly committing suicide.
Okay. Yeah, keep going.
It is said that this human form of life is the only means for crossing over the nescience of Maya or material existence. We have a very efficient boat in this human form of body, and there is a very expert captain, the spiritual master. The scriptural injunctions are like favorable winds. If we do not cross over the ocean of the nescience of material existence, in spite of all these facilities, then certainly we are all intentionally committing suicide.
All right. So yes, we're given the example here. The human body is compared to the boat, right? The very efficient boat. The human body is just like a boat. And on every boat, there should be an experienced captain. And so the captain, the position of the captain is compared to the spiritual teacher. And for the boat to sail nicely, there should be a nice breeze, a nice wind. So the wind is compared to the scriptural injunctions. So in this way, the ocean of material existence is crossed over in the human form of life, which is compared to the boat. To go across an ocean, you don't want to just try to swim. You should have a proper boat. So the human form of life is compared to the appropriate boat for crossing over the ocean of material existence. And if we don't take advantage of it, then it's described, it's like intentionally committing suicide. We must try to appreciate the opportunity of the human form of life.
Maharaj, Pranam.
Yes?
The previous slide, spiritual master, the captain. So the spiritual master means both the Siksha Guru, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
But,
Siksha and, yes.
The current situation, the Siksha Guru keep changing, Maharaj, because of the various reasons of shifting our residence and so many reasons. So the Siksha Guru thing, how to maintain that?
Well, we could say the Guru is one, but he comes in many different forms, because the Guru is giving instructions according to the scriptures. Right? We say Sadhu, Shastra and Guru. They are parallel authorities. The Guru is not going to teach you anything or give you any instructions which are against the scriptures. The Guru is a Guru based on his knowledge of the scriptures, that he's teaching and guiding you according to scriptures. So, yes, you may have different Siksha Gurus. You move from one place to another, and you'll have different Siksha Gurus, but the instructions will all be the same. The founder Acharya is the same. Srila Prabhupada is actually the Siksha Guru for everyone. Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya. We're guided by his books.
I am particularly asking about the different circumstances that we are going through. Like as time progresses, we when we grow to be from like a 20-year-old and then 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, like that, the life also brings up newer challenges, and we need a constant, like a person who began teaching us at the age of 20, he doesn't know us now because he is not near us. Somebody else is there. So there is I'm unable to understand what you are saying, that the instructions remain the same. Prabhupada instruction is given, Sadhu instruction is given. So that part I understood. But the practical side of it, how we have to be guided, like if we keep changing the Siksha Guru, how are we able to develop that trust and the love and trust with this changing job scenarios?
Yes, of course, the personal relationship. You don't want to be too much sentimental about these things. Yes, Siksha Guru may change, but you know, you can also keep in touch with them, although you're maybe in a different location, with the use of technology, taking advantage of the different technology which is available today. You can always keep in touch with Siksha Gurus if you like. It's up to you, really. If you like to keep in touch with them, I'm sure you could. But you don't have to be focused. Don't just be attached to the body. Srila Prabhupada taught us there's Vani and Vapu. Vani is what is important. So the Vani doesn't change. You get the instruction from your Siksha Guru when you're 20. You get the same instruction from another Siksha Guru when you're 60. The same instructions, it's the same message. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Chant the holy name, worship Krishna, read the books about Krishna. The message is not going to change.
But it has to be a personalized one also. Like we cannot just take from anyone. It has to be a tailor-made kind of, because the situations are different for different people.
Well, you say has to be tailored. You want somebody to speak maybe your local language or something. That may not
local language.
Huh?
Comfortable with any language, but the person has to be in good standing sadhana and.
Well, of course, that's always there. The person has to be in proper standing. You cannot take, if you're going to have to accept someone as a Siksha Guru, of course they have to proper standing. That's.
But if the person himself is in the three modes of nature, we want a person above the modes.
Of course. You're talking about a spiritual. You said Siksha Guru. The qualification to be Siksha Guru is the same as the qualification to be Diksha Guru. They're both on the same level. Now you may take instructions from someone, but he may not be on that level. So then you don't have to see him as a Siksha Guru. But you could still see him as a temple authority. You see someone as the authority, temple manager or something like that, all right. You respect him as some authority. He may be influenced by the modes, you may see.
It has become now a very rare commodity. This Siksha Guru has become a very rare commodity.
Well, I don't know why.
At least in the in the physical near someone.
Well, you have to take the responsibility yourself. Maybe there's openings for you to come and become a Siksha Guru. You can do it yourself. If you see there's nobody taking the place, then you come forward yourself and take up that service. You know, there are many ladies who do this service. They're very fixed and they're very strong in devotional service. So you can take on the responsibility yourself. If you feel there's a lack or there's a need for more spiritual teachers, Siksha Gurus, you yourself can take on that duty. You may feel, oh, I'm not qualified. You may, oh, I'm not qualified. I can tell you, I also felt like that when I had to take on the duty.
Yes.
Certainly, if we feel we are qualified, then it's not good. We shouldn't feel that we're qualified. We should feel ourselves unqualified. But there's a need. There's a need for someone to take on the service. We have to become qualified. And it's often the way in Krishna consciousness, it's often the way that we're given the service before we're actually qualified. Just like when we received initiation in the beginning, we may have felt we're not really qualified. but we were given the opportunity. And then when we got second initiation, again we thought, I'm not really qualified, but we can become qualified. We're given the opportunity to become qualified. So similarly, you can also become Siksha Guru, become a spiritual teacher. You can become a mentor, a guide for people. And gradually, people will come to recognize you as a Siksha Guru. You don't want to push yourself onto people. Look, I'm a Siksha Guru, I can give you, But we do want to try to do our best to help other people. If we see there's a need to help other people, then we should be willing to offer ourselves where we can to help out, to give some association and to give guidance.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj, Dandat Pranam. Maharaj, Rasesh Prabhu, I believe he has a question. He's raised his hand.
Dandat Pranams Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, on the previous slide, it said that if the child is fortunate, then he will remember his past 100 lifetimes. So what type of fortune or what should have he done to remember 100 lifetimes in the womb?
If the child is fortunate, that means he must have had some piety, from his previous life. He must have had some opportunity to maybe associate with sadhus, or maybe some agyata sukriti from before. Some tendency towards the mode of goodness. That's the more fortunate child.
A little devotion, Maharaj, is that?
It could also be, yes, it could be a glimmer of devotion from the previous life. Some association, maybe some connection with holy men or saints or scriptures, or something from the past which made him fortunate, right? We say in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada uses the word fortunate in the translation of the verse Brahmanda Brahmite Kunya Bhagyavan Jeev. He said when the living entity is fortunate, then he contacts the spiritual master and he gets the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of devotion.
Thank you, Maharaj. Dandat Pranams.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandat Pranam. Maharaj, one more hand is raised by Nandasutta Prabhu.
Oh, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandat Pranam. Maharaj, when does the soul enter the body? Is it the first day or on the later?
At the time of conception, the very first day, at that very moment of conception, it was shown very clearly the mixture of the sperm and the ovum. When they come together, the soul is there in the man's semen. It's imparted from the male semen into the lady's womb.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
All right? Prayers in the womb. The child's in the womb, and we heard, condition is very uncomfortable, a lot of suffering. If the mother, for example, sometimes the ladies, maybe they take a hot drink or something, can burn the tender skin of the child. Or sometimes they take spicy food. Sometimes people like very much to have chilies, a lot of chili, a lot of spice, and that kind of thing can burn the skin of the child, making it very difficult for the child in the womb. So the child in that condition, not every child, but some children will pray. So it's described here in Srimad Bhagavatam, the living entity in this frightful condition of life, bound by 7 layers of material ingredients, prays with folded hands, appealing to the Lord who has put him in that condition. All right, we're going to hear about the child's prayers. Could someone read?
Shama Premadaji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. Prayers in the womb. Text 12. The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. Text 13. I, the pure soul, appearing now bound by my activities, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him, who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is perceived in the repentant herd. To him I offer my respectful obeisances. Text 14. I am separated from the Supreme Lord because of my being in the material body, which is made of 5 elements, and therefore my qualities and senses are being misused, although I am essentially spiritual. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to material nature and the living entities, because he is devoid of such a material body, and because he is always glorious in his spiritual qualities, I offer my obeisances unto him.
Thank you. So, described here about the repentant heart, that the Lord, the super soul there, who is with the living entities, perceived by the repentant heart. Repentant in the sense that we regret that we've come again, we've taken birth again in the material world. Would someone like to read?
Prayers in the womb. It is said here, Atapyamana hridaye vasitam, avasitam. He is in the heart of every living entity, but he can be realized only by a soul who is repentant. The individual soul becomes repentant that he forgot his constitutional position, wanted to become one with the Supreme Soul, and tried his best to lord it over material nature. He has been baffled, and therefore he is repentant. 13 Purport.
So repentant, we're sorry we did this, we regret it. Oh, again, we've come into this material body. So, what was the mistake? We tried to lord over the material energy. Someone read?
Sudhanidhi Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. 3.31.15. A human soul further prays. The living entity is put under the influence of material nature and continues a hard struggle for existence on the path of repeated birth and death. This conditional life is due to his forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of God. Therefore, without the Lord's mercy, how can he again engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord? Text 16. No one other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the localized Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord, is directing all inanimate and animate objects. He is present in a 3 phases of time, past, present and future. Therefore, the conditional soul is engaged in different activities by his direction, and in order to get free from the threefold miseries of this conditional life, we have to surrender unto him only. Text 17. Falling into a pool of blood, stool and urine within the abdomen of his mother, his own body was scorched by the mother's gastric fire. The embodied soul, anxious to get out, counts his mouth and prays, "O my Lord, when shall I, a wretched soul, be released from this confirm?"
Yeah, when shall I be released from this confinement, right? So this is the condition. The child in the womb is praying to get out because it's so terrible, so miserable, scorched by the mother's gastric fire. Oh, and he's there for a long time. Okay, someone read?
Tattva with Nimai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prayers in the womb. Arguments may be put forward as to why we have been put under the influence of this material energy by the supreme will of the Lord. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, I am sitting in everyone's heart, and due to me, one is the forgetfulness or one is alive in knowledge. The forgetfulness of the conditioned soul is also due to the direction of the Supreme Lord.
Yeah, keep reading.
Living entity misuse is little independency.
Oh, sorry.
His misuse little independence, and when he wants to, Lord, it over material nature. This misuse of independency, which is called Maya, is always available. Otherwise, would be no independency. Independency implies that one can use it properly or improperly. It is not static. It is dynamic. Therefore, misuse of independency is the cause of being influenced by the Maya. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:31-15.
Okay, independence, as it's described, it's mentioned in the very first sloka of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you remember? Janmadyasyad yato navayad iteratas charteshu abhigyanas swarat. Right? That's the independent living, the independence of the living entity. Only the Lord is actually swarat, a fully independent. We have marginal independence. What is the independence of the living entity? It's mentioned here. The misuse of independence. What is how do we misuse it?
Instead of surrendering to the Lord, we are surrendering to the Maya.
Right. We have to choose between Maya and Krishna. That's our independence. So we choose, should I surrender to Krishna or should I surrender to Maya? Now, if we surrender to Krishna, are we controlled? Yes? Someone? Are we controlled if we surrender to Krishna?
No, Krishna gives a full free will for us to love him.
Huh?
Krishna gives a full freedom to love him.
But we're fully under his control. We're under the control of his divine energy. We're controlled by love, the love of the Lord for his devotees. Either way, if we surrender to Krishna, we're controlled by the spiritual energy. And if we surrender to Maya, we're controlled by the material energy, by karma. Either way, we're controlled, whether we surrender to Krishna or surrender to Maya. But there's a big difference, surrendering to Krishna and being controlled by love. Whereas in the material world, we're not control. It's not love, but rather we're forced by the material nature, through the modes of nature. We're forced to act. But under the spiritual energy, we're also controlled, but it's a loving relationship. So that is the misuse of our independence. All right? Someone can read?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Prayers in the womb. Maya is so strong that the Lord says that it is very difficult to surmount her influence. but one can do so very easily if he surrenders unto me. Anyone who surrenders unto him can overcome the influence of the stringent laws of material nature. It is clearly said here that a living entity is put under the influence of Maya by his will. And if one wants to get out of this entanglement, this can be made
possible simply by his mercy.
Simply by his mercy.
Yeah, we lost a bit of the word there, sorry. Okay, I'll try to click that. Okay, keep going.
As the super soul is seated within the heart of the living entity, and when the living entity is serious, the Lord directs him to take shelter of his representative, a bona fide spiritual master. Directed from within and guided externally by the spiritual master, one attains the path of consciousness, which is the way out of the material clutches, and one's life is blessed. SB 3.31.16.
Thank you. All right, so we surrender. We surrender to Krishna. We take shelter of Krishna. We surrender. We become controlled. Certainly we're controlled. We surrender to the spiritual master. We take direction. We're directed from within and guided externally by the spiritual master. You attain the path of consciousness. So, yeah, there's control, but control by love, not like the one who surrenders to Maya, control by force. So sometimes foolish people think, they're thinking, oh, I'm free, I can do whatever I like, I can smoke and drink and I can eat anything I like. They're thinking they're free, that's the illusion. They're controlled by the modes of nature. It's all control. But our independence is there. Are we going to be controlled by Krishna or by Maya? That is our independence. All right, text 18, someone read.
Vrajapriya Mataji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Prayers in the womb, 3:31:18. My dear Lord, by your causeless mercy, I am awakened to consciousness. Although I am only 10 months old, for this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the friend of all fallen souls, there is no way to express my gratitude, but to pray with folded hands. 3:31:19. The living entity in another type of the body sees only by instinct. He knows only the agreeable and disagreeable sense perceptions of that particular body. But I have a body in which I can control my senses and can understand my destination. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whom I have been blessed with this body, and by whose grace I can see him within and without. SB 3:31:20. Therefore, my Lord, although I am living in a terrible condition, I do not wish to depart from my mother's abdomen to fall again into the blind well of materialistic life. Your external energy, called Deva Maya, at once captures the newly born child and immediately false identification, which is the beginning of the cycle of continual birth and death begins.
So, we see the change, the transformation, right? Previously, the child was praying, let me out of here. He was praying to get free. But now, when it's coming time for him to leave, there's a change. And the child is praying, I don't wish to leave. I don't want to fall again into the blind well of materialistic life. The Deva Maya will capture the newborn child, and immediately false identification. Oh, the mother and everyone comes and, oh, look at the beautiful child. And the child is crying miserably. We were talking about, remember in the last class, the man was dying, and I was describing to you, the man is a happy end. The man is thinking, He's lucky to get away, to get out from the body. He's suffering so much. Old age and disease. And of course the family members, many want him to go also. They're thinking, why doesn't he die quickly? We get tired of taking care of him. And so he was happy to die. The child who takes birth, he's crying, he's lamenting. Oh no, I've taken birth again. Here I go again. Another birth, another body in the material world. So miserable to take birth, and have to grow up, take a new body and begin to grow. Yes, someone read?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandat Pranam. Maharaj, there are two hands being lifted, Maharaj.
Okay.
Our Dr. His Grace Udar Shyam Prabhuji.
Let's hear them then.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, in a 16 shloka, when he says that there is a minute independency, we choose the Maya or we don't, or we choose the Krishna's service. This is the only independency we has. And when we choose the Maya, we go under control of the Maya. And when we choose the Krishna, we go under control of the Krishna's Yoga Maya. Now, Maharaj, once we decided this one, where we are going, so that was because we have come in the material world now. But here, how is it we are getting again chance to choosing something? So we are independency to choose to the devotional service is the again chance we are getting here, or how it is that one? Because once we choose already, that's why we came here the material world.
At every moment you get a chance to choose to surrender to Krishna or surrender to Maya. At every moment that chance is there. Do you want Krishna or do you want Maya?
Okay, so that every moment our choice will create our karma and our service.
Yes. If you choose Maya, then you put yourself immediately, you're under the control of material nature, you've got your karma, you go back to your karma. And when you choose Krishna, then you're protected. Your karma is stopped because you're engaged in Krishna's service. So Maya cannot touch you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, was someone else's hand up there?
Maharaj, I have two questions if it's permitted. The first question, Maharaj, does all this jivas, they pray like this with so deep philosophical points?
Well, I told you, no, not every child is going to pray like that. Not at all. Only children who had the habit, only souls who had the habit from their previous life to pray will pray when they come into the womb. They have to have had that somehow from their past, that they had the habit, they were accustomed to pray to the Lord.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Other question, what about the fate of the other jivas who have been entrapped there?
The other jivas who don't pray?
Yeah.
Well, they'll take their birth, right? They'll take their birth according to their karma. Karmana daiva netrena, under the direction of the Supreme Lord, and according to their karma, they're going to take their birth. Well, that's there for all living entities. Now the ones who pray, those who pray, there must be a bit more pious. They're certainly a bit more pious, so they're going to have their birth will be a bit better, they'll have the opportunity to continue their mood, their prayerful mood. But the danger is also there that once they come out of the womb, then they can forget. They become covered, as we're going to hear. So that's why the child prayed. He didn't want to come out of the womb. He wanted to stay in the womb. Right? We saw Sukadeva Goswami, he stayed in the womb 16 years. didn't want to come out. And Diti, Mother Diti, she was pregnant. She had the two demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, in her womb. She kept them in her womb for 100 years before she gave birth.
Thank you, Maharaj. It's clear, Maharaj. Clear. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so the prayers in the womb by the... Did we read this?
No, Maharaj.
No, we have to read this. Yeah.
Yes.
Prayers in the womb. Can you read?
Yes, go ahead, Mataji.
This prayer of the child in the womb may be questioned by some atheistic people. How can a child pray in such a nice way in the womb of his mother? Everything is possible by the grace of the Lord. The child is put into such a precarious condition externally, but internally he is the same. And the Lord is there. By the transcendental energy of the Lord, everything is possible.
Yeah. The child is put into such a precarious condition. But internally, he is the same. And the Lord is there. Atheistic people, they cannot understand these things. But for the devotee, we know. The Lord has inconceivable potencies. And certainly, the living entity, he can remember his past lives, and he remembers also, and in that situation, being in the womb, he can understand the condition. He can pray to the Lord. Go ahead, Mataji.
I am suffering now, but when I take birth, I will immediately begin to identify with my body due to Maya's plan. I will then become a materialist and further extend my suffering. Better that I remain in this womb despite my present misery.
Those of you who have children, you must have experienced this, right? When you have the child, you know, everyone will come and look at the child and, oh, you know, and and the child, they will all flatter the child, and the child will certainly become enamored by the sweet words of all the people. So the child said, I will become a materialist. And become a materialist means more suffering. So better to stay in the womb. But how long can you stay in the womb? Yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
Therefore, without being agitated anymore, I shall deliver myself from the darkness of nescience with the help of my friend, clear consciousness. Simply by keeping the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu in my mind, I shall be saved from entering into the wombs of many mothers for repeated birth and death.
So can you think of some examples from scriptures about this, about some souls who took birth and how they managed to keep their consciousness clear?
Sukadev Maharaj.
Yes, Sukadev and 4 Kumaras, yes. Somebody else?
Parikshit Maharaj.
Parikshit Maharaj, did he? Well, yes, because when he was in the womb, he was saved by the Lord, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
So, yes? Anybody else?
Ambarish Maharaj.
Ambarish Maharaj, I don't know so much about his birth and so on, but certainly he was always engaged in thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord.
Narada Maharishi.
I was thinking about Jad Bharat, you know, that he became the deer, and then next life he was Jad Bharat, he was born in the Brahmana family, and he was very careful he didn't get too entangled in the family. So he always behaved like Jad Bharat, you know, stupid. And so the father didn't get too attached to him. If he'd been very intelligent, then the father would have been very attached to him, wouldn't let him go. So Jad Bharat would do everything wrong. He pretended to be very stupid. So then the father didn't have any affection for him. And this way Jad Bharat could get away from home and didn't get entangled in the family life. So he kept his consciousness clear. He didn't want to get entangled with the material families, the relationships. Okay. Okay, someone else read?
Muna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
One does not need any material arrangement to cultivate consciousness. One can cultivate consciousness anywhere and everywhere, provided he can always think of the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, can be chanted even within the abdomen of one's mother. One can chant while sleeping, while working, while imprisoned in the womb, or while outside. Consciousness cannot be checked in any circumstance.
Right. We have seen many devotees, young people coming to Krishna consciousness sometimes, after being a devotee a short time, sometimes we'll hear them chanting in their sleep. And they become really attached to the chanting of the holy name. And in their sleep, although they're sleeping, they'll be chanting. It's so nice. So, Prabhupada's explaining, in the womb, people can also chant. Consciousness is not going to be checked. So even though we may not be able to speak, we can still chant in the mind. All right. Someone like to read this now?
Krishna Chittahari Prabhuji. Dayanidhi Prabhu.
Harisha Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Prayers in the womb. Therefore, without being agitated anymore, I can deliver myself from the...
I don't know where you are, Prabhu.
Being covered by Maya.
Yes, right.
Bhagavatam 3:31-22. Lord Kapila continued. The 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. But while he thus extols the Lord, the wind that helps parturition propels him forth with his face turned downward so that he may be born.
Yes, we saw this in the film right at the beginning. We saw the child being pushed down to come out, to take birth. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Can I read the next one, Maharaj?
Yes, please.
3:31-23. Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless and deprived of memory due to severe agony. 3:31-24. The child thus falls on the ground, smeared with stool and blood, and placed just like a worm germinated from the stool. He loses his superior knowledge and cries under the spell of Maya.
Okay. So we hear about the birth of the child. It's really not very pleasant. We can see suffering in the womb, right? We think suffering is only coming after coming out of the womb, but even in the womb there's a lot of suffering there. Now he's taken birth. Is someone there to read text 25?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I accept my humble obeisances. Text 25. After coming out of the abdomen, the child is given to the care of persons who are unable to understand what he wants, and thus he is nursed by such persons. Unable to refuse whatever is given to him, he falls into undesirable circumstances. 26. Laid down on a foul bed infested with sweat and germs, The poor child is incapable of scratching his body to get relief from his itching sensation, to say nothing of sitting up, standing, or even moving. 27. In this helpless condition, gnats, mosquitoes, bugs, and other germs bite the baby, whose skin is tender, just as smaller worms bite a big worm. The child, deprived of his wisdom, cries bitterly. 28. In this way, the child passes through his childhood, suffering different kinds of distress, and attains boyhood. In boyhood, also he suffers pain over desires to get things he can never achieve. And thus, due to ignorance, he becomes angry and sorry.
So Srimad Bhagavatam is presenting a picture of the life of the living entity from the moment of conception in the womb, and then growing, living in the womb, suffering. Taking birth means also suffering. And then after birth, then still suffering. Helpless. It's not able to communicate. Suffering so many miseries. And then comes to childhood. And again, suffering. And boyhood. More suffering. Is it ever going to stop? When he becomes an adult, will there be no more suffering? Suffering's always there. Not only children, but also elderly persons should be very careful to protect their sense of Krishna consciousness and avoid unfavorable circumstances so that they may not forget their prime duty. So, what is our prime duty, of course? To remember Krishna, to protect our Krishna consciousness. And this is for children, for elderly persons, everyone. We all have to be very careful. Someone can read 29?
Gopijan Prabhuji.
Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. With the growth, 29. With the growth of the body, the living entity, in order to vanquish his soul, increases his false prestige and anger, and thereby creates enmity towards a similarly lusty people. 30. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in this dark region. 31. For the sake of the body, which is a source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him because of his bound to the ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, he performs various actions which cause him to be the subjected to repeated birth and death.
Okay, so we're hearing about this poor unfortunate soul, how he falls into bodily consciousness. Really, he becomes very materialistic, very much influenced by the modes of nature. So, it's mentioned how he creates enmity with similarly lusty people because of his false prestige and anger. And then he accepts non-permanent things as his own. And then 31, we heard constant, the body's a source of constant trouble to him. And he is bound by ties of ignorance and fruitive actions, and performs various actions, sinful activities, which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death. In other words, he's doing many sinful activities. So this is unfortunate condition of the person who is influenced by the lower modes of nature. So now Lord Kapila comes to this point to warn all of us about the importance of association. And we have to be very much aware of what is good association and what is not. Text 32 says, if therefore the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment and the gratification of the palate, he again goes to hell as before. Lord Kapila is going to speak very strongly to us. He wants to warn us about the importance of association. One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized his self by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman, for such a woman is declared in the scriptures to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. Now, I want to point out, when it mentions a woman here, those of you who are ladies, you should think man. For such a man is declared in the scriptures to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. It's just a question of reading it. You know, the scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam was written for men, but when ladies read it, you have to put yourself, you have to understand how to understand this kind of text. You understand? So for the ladies, you should read it. For such a man is declared to be the gateway to hell. That's text 38. Lord Kapila says, just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of, well, here it says women, but it could also be men, who by the mere movement of his or her eyebrows can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip or his grip. All right, the trap of family life. Is it a trap? Is it so wonderful?
Yes, it's a trap.
Well, the women created by the Lord is the woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya. And one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass. So, the man created by the Lord is a representation of Maya, right? Ladies have to read it a little differently. Text 41, a living entity who as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. Here it mentions that, you know, someone becomes a woman because in the previous life he was attached to a woman. So that's an indication. We could think like that women, those who have a woman's body, that maybe in their past life they were men and they were attached to a woman. Now they've become women. So they have the form of a woman. And then they look upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, because the man is giving her so many things, taking care of her material condition. A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. Right? They capture the deer They'll have someone, they make a nice sound, someone plays the flute, and the deer will hear this, the playing of the flute, it will become stunned, and the hunter can come and shoot to kill the deer. So the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. In the same way, what is death for the woman? Is all of her family members, her husband, her children, all these things. All right, here's an exercise for you now. This is a good opportunity for you to discuss this. How many people do we have here this evening? How many is here?
26, Maharaj.
26. Okay.
25.
25? Is it 25 or
25? 25, Maharaj.
25? Okay, so 3 into, how should we do it? 3, 6 into 25, 6, 4. Groups of 4, and we can have 4 people. We'll have 6 groups, and 1 group of 5. All right, there were 6 groups. That means 2 Jagannath groups, 2 Baladev groups, and 2 Subhadra groups. Group 1 and 2 will be Jagannath. Group 3 and 4 will be Baladev, and group 5 and 6 will be the Subhadra group. And you have to discuss. The Jagannath group will discuss text 38 to 40. Association of woman is the gateway to hellish life.
Maharaj, 3 groups, is it?
No, 6 groups. 6
groups.
6 groups. 2 Jagannath, 2 Baladev, and 2 Subhadra groups. Group 1 and 2 will be the Jagannath groups. They will discuss text 38 to 40. Association of woman is the gateway to hellish life. Then the Baladev group will discuss the body of a man has greater opportunity to get out of the material clutches. Text 41. And then the Subhadra groups will discuss text 32 to 39, that woman is a wonderful creation of Maya to keep the conditioned soul in shackles. Right?
How many minutes, Maharaj?
10 minutes.
Recording stopped.
Please join the rooms.
Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
We will be reading from third question, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Subhadra team, right?
Right. Text 32 to 39.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Bhakti Priya Mataji, Prabhuji's.
Yeah. Very sorry. Because matter, right? Yeah. I cannot compete. I send a message to Venkateshwara Prabhu. Yes, Mataji, sorry.
Okay.
Just I am listening, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji.
Mataji, please go ahead. I'm still traveling. I'm still trying to attend the class. Please go ahead. If it's required, I'll try to put my input. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Maharaj. Maharaj, in 32, 33, it's not given, but in 34, it has been given something. All the qualities are to be manifested with the progress of Krishna consciousness. But if one associates with a Shudra, a foolish person who's like a dancing dog in the hands of a woman, then he cannot make any progress. I don't know. Must not associate himself with a woman or with persons interested in material enjoyment. For a person seeking advancement in Krishna consciousness, such association is more dangerous.
Hare Krishna Mataji, number 35, it says about association, the harmful effect of association with women and with those persons who are attached to women.
Yeah, but we need to say that the woman is wonderful creation of Maya to keep the conditioned soul in shackles. So that does not say anything about it. I will check in 35.
No, it's not mentioned there, but the point is there to understand, the power of women, that they do have a certain powerful influence over men.
Yeah.
And we even say behind every great man, there's a greater woman.
There's a woman.
So the point is, is it the fact that women are created just for that purpose, to keep men in shackles? Well, if they're conditioned souls, then yeah, that's the result, because they're conditioned. Most people are conditioned in that way. They're fully under the control of the material energy. But it doesn't have to be like that.
The woman can also help to progress in Krishna consciousness.
Oh, very much, yeah.
Maharaj, are we to have the perspective that as long as one sees or observes women as a means for self-enjoyment, then it will prove to be like a very strong cycle to these women as a servant of Krishna who is an object to help us also advance in Krishna consciousness. Just for a brahmachari, you can see women as a mother or mother-like, and the grihasthas also, they can see women to be counterpart who can help in advancing in Krishna consciousness, to assist the husbands in serving Krishna. So then women may not be seen as a wonderful object of creation of Maya to prove as a stumbling block on the path to bhakti.
Yes, your point is valid. Yes, I certainly agree that the women can be very helpful. For a man if a man has a good wife, husband and wife, if they're equally matched, they can do wonderful service in Krishna consciousness.
Maharaj, I was having this small doubt. That the detachment from the women are stumbling blocks. But how are our Matajis or women supposed to see these verses? And what are they supposed to learn from these verses, Maharaj?
Well, Matajis are supposed to see men. Like, just as men see Matajis like this, the women should see men. The men can be a creation of Maya to keep conditioned souls in shackles.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
And we see everywhere, even in the spiritual world, there are also women. It's not that there are no women in the spiritual world. It's not that there's only men in the spiritual world. We have men and women both in the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha and in Goloka. And there's many wonderful women. Mother Yashoda and Kunti and Draupadi and so on. They're wonderful ladies. We can't say they're creations of Maya to keep people in shackles.
Yeah, that's a very nice way of saying, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
And we see also that Lord Krishna also, from Lord Krishna's own, his pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani, appears in the female form. So does it mean she's to keep her purpose? Her purpose, of course, is not to keep Lord Krishna in shackles. Lord Krishna is never conditioned, but Lord Krishna enjoys he enjoys the association of ladies, the women, They're a creation, they're a divine creation, not just a creation of Maya. Right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Is it that only the liberation will be only in the male body or female body also?
Yes.
Can liberation be in the male body also, male body and female body both, or only in the male body?
No, both, of course. Women can also be liberated, yes.
But mostly it is spoken as man getting liberated. So I was under the impression that, if I need to be taking a birth as a man to get liberated.
No, it's not true.
Yeah, even Dhruva Maharaj's mother, Suniti, got liberated.
Yes, good point, yes.
And also Srila Prabhupada never mentions that there's a special prerogative or special...
well, Bhagavad Gita also says, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Sudras Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. Even though they be of lower birth, like Striya means women, and Sudra and Vaishya, they can all attain the supreme destination.
So it's not required that they need to get a higher birth and they need to do,
No. But you need to get higher consciousness.
Higher consciousness.
Maharaj, may I just add one thing?
Yes.
We heard from Srila Prabhupada, because some of the women disciples, they used to ask Srila Prabhupada that women are fallen or less intelligent. Srila Prabhupada said, as long as you think that you are women, you are bodily conscious, that is valid. But you are devotee, you are Vaishnavi, so it doesn't apply to you.
Right, yes. Yes. Women, when we talk about women, that's, we're not talking about devotee women. Devotee ladies, they're transcendental. They're properly situated on the spiritual platform. And so when women here, this is the women of the material world.
And even Maharaj, we heard that Srila Prabhupada's sister, Pisima Bhavatarini, when she used to come to Vrindavan or Mayapur and she used to cook for Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada used to tell devotees that she's a pure devotee and she's going back to Godhead.
Really? I don't know. I never heard that before.
We heard this from His Holiness Subhag Swami Maharaj.
No, okay. Subhag said that? Okay, good. Yes, certainly she was an initiated devotee. She'd been initiated, Gaudiya Vaishnava. And she was very devoted soul. She loved Prabhupada. She loved her brother very much. Okay, I think we have to finish. We'll go back.
Thank you so much.
Okay, is everyone back?
No, Maharaj.
Another two minutes, they'll be back.
2 minutes? Really?
They're back.
Recording in progress.
All right, so let's hear from Jagannath group. Group number 1, what did you discuss?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. So we are from group 1, Jagannath group. Associating with the women is the gateway to hell was the phrase which was given to us. So we were given shlokas from 38, 39 and 40. So from 38, Srila Prabhupada is actually from the scriptures. Prabhupada ji is trying to explain that even this attraction towards women should come from the Supreme Lord. And because of his internal energy, he has created Srimati Radharani, and that his attraction to Srimati Radharani is there, and that's why Srimati Radharani is called Madana Mohana Mohini. And so in 39, here Kapila Deva is telling about the association of women is gateway to hell, and Srila Prabhupada is giving examples of Cleopatra, where she could control the entire Roman politics. And similarly, we discussed about several examples like how Vishwamitra was associating with Menaka and he fell down from his tapasya. And similarly, Shaubhari Muni, who just saw some fishes and then he had to temporarily give up his tapasya and go and marry princesses. So like this, we come to understand that association with women is very dangerous, and it can pull down the spiritual advancement. And Srila Prabhupada clearly mentions for a brahmachari, vanaprastha and sannyasi, it is strictly prohibited to be associated with women. And then in text 40, Kapila Muni says, the woman created by the Lord is a representation of Maya. And a person who is advancing spiritually should see that it is like a blind well being covered by grass. So sometimes we see that when a male elephant has to be captured, a female elephant is put in a pit, and because of the cries of the female elephant, the male elephant also is attracted and it is also caught. Therefore, Kapila Deva strictly says, even for householders also, it is they have to carefully associate with women. And Srila Prabhupada is telling our culture, Indian culture, says even 50 years ago there were different quarters for the men and for the women. The women could not freely associate with their husbands.
Oh, very good. Yes, thank you very much. You brought up some very nice points. Very nice. I would like to know, is there some other points which the other Jagannath group could add to this?
Maharaj, in that same group, one more point is that in the verse number 38, when the man is getting attracted to the worldly woman, then he will get in the fall down. But the same man, when he is getting attracted to the beauty of Radha and Krishna, then it is the an advancement for him. He will get liberated from this material world. So he wants, instead of getting the worldly beauty attraction, he should get attracted to the Radha and Krishna's beauty. So which Prabhupada mentions as Param Drishtva Nivartate.
Okay. Yes. Yes, can we have the other Jagannath group? Group 2?
Nanda Sutta Prabhu, Nityanashina Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, actually group 2. Baladeva group, it was said body of a man has greater opportunity to get out of the material clutches. So first of all,
Maharaj is asking for Jagannath group. Who is the other Jagannath group? 1 and 2 is Jagannath group, isn't it?
Yes, Mataji.
So you are supposed to be Jagannath group actually. 3 and 4 is Baladev, 5 and 6 is Subhadra.
Yeah, we were.
Okay.
we were in the third group. From our side, Rajeshwari Mataji will lead.
What happened to group 2?
They have discussed actually they thought they had the Baladev group and they discussed on that.
Oh, that's right.
You want them to share the points, Maharaj?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, room 2, please go on.
Yeah. If we discuss the point, body of a man has a greater opportunity to get out of the material clutches. So we had some arguments regarding this statement. First was, the discussion we had was, as the purport says that every living entity is an energy, is a womanhood. So everyone is a woman. And second discussion was only Krishna is the Purusha, rest all is again woman. But going as per the purport, we also discussed that whether it is a man or a woman, it's immaterial, because if a man thinks of the wife while leaving the body, he's going to get the body of a wife. And vice versa, if the wife thinks of the man, he's going to get the body of her husband. So immaterially, whether man or woman, as long as they think about surrendering to the service of the Lord, that is the only way they can get out of the material clutches of this life cycle of birth and death. So that's what we discussed, Maharaj, that it might not necessarily be a body of a man, it could be a body of a man or woman. Or we can think that when a man reads, as you said, he thinks as a woman, or a woman thinks as a man. So we said whether it's man or woman, as long as they think about the service of the Lord, they get out of this life, repeated life cycle. Hare Krishna.
So you didn't see any you didn't see any advantages in the male body.
We, as a group, we didn't see, because we didn't distinguish a man or a woman specifically, because we thought whether a man or a woman at the end of their life, if he is not going to surrender, if the thoughts are not about the service of the Lord, it's immaterial, whether about the gender specific.
Okay, let's hear group 3.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Pranam. We also discussed the same points as room 2, group 2, but with a little mention about how we get attached in our, practically in our devotee life, how we get attached to each other because of the gratitude part, that we also feel that the man is contributing more, the woman feels, the devotee Mataji feels that the devotee Prabhu is more than her, and also the Prabhu also feels that the Mataji is serving more in connecting them to Krishna. You know, making them, they both are contributing for making each other Krishna conscious. So that gratitude part is there in their heart. That is a way of, that's a kind of attachment also, that they are grateful to each other. That one is there, but actually the attachment is towards Krishna only. They are not attached to each other in the bodily platform. They are attached to each other in the Krishna platform.
Okay. So you don't see any you don't see any real advantage in the male body.
Mataji, Hare Krishna Guruji, Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. If I'm asked, maybe this is in context of Bhagavatam. I mean, Devi Varnashrama Dharma is applicable for all the yugas, wherein in earlier yugas, the education part or the spiritual realization part were predominantly being taken by the males. And the Matajis who sincerely serve their patis will get the benefit. They reap the benefits while serving it. So in that context, it would have been said, but in the present Bhagavata Priti or Prabhupada established is Krishna consciousness, both are equally realizing or endeavoring to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is no special rule that Matajis have to be following Prabhujis, or Prabhujis have got any special advantages over the Matajis.
Well, what about men taking sannyas? women don't take sannyas.
Actually, in the sorry Maharaj, in the Kali Yuga, sannyasa acceptance is not recommended, but the sannyasa in the Siddhanta form, in the Vaishnava sannyasas will take to elevate the common people. So when it comes to elevating the common people, even Matajis also can elevate the common people. So they may not be taking that saffron color dress, but the duties of Paravrajkacharya can be equally performed by Matajis also. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I'm just specifying.
Okay, all right, yeah. I'm just arguing for argument's sake. No, we have to try to see that all around. You have to see that, the points which have to be brought out here. These things have to be considered. Certainly there's some opportunity for the man, just like Prabhupada said, all you ladies have to get married, and he told all the Brahmin men, you have to stay single. Prabhupada was in the temple, I think it was in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada said, all you girls, you all have to get married, and all you men, you have to stay single. And everyone laughed, of course, But that was, generally we see for the men, it's okay. Men don't have to marry. They can be brahmacharis. They can, come and live in Mayapur. We have a lot of brahmacharis here in Mayapur.
Maharaj, I can say something about it, the advantage. Like even in our Varna ashramas, the association with the ladies is allowed for only the Grastha ashrama. So it means in education period, all these periods, it has been avoided. And to the Vanprastha and also Sannyasa, both has been told for the male. Females has been not told. This is the one thing. Third, it will be the females are more emotional, we say. And that emotions sometimes creates the weakness. That is also one problem.
Yeah, generally we say like that. Yeah, the weaker sex.
In general,
right?
we can.
So, Maharaj, from group 4 on the same subject. I mean, I'm very interested that many devotees have contributed to the topic which is given to us. But since the sentence is written in purport by Srila Prabhupada, so there is definitely a meaning behind that. I mean, immediately if we consider a devotee, women and men, then probably we may not be convinced to accept this fact. But if we see that karmi men and karmi women, how it is difficult, how the male candidate has a better opportunity. See, generally, a woman is glorified by her beauty, and male is glorified. I mean, karmic perspective, I'm telling, and male is considered. is glorified by his wealth, earning capacity, and by strength, probably. So, in that conclusion, female generally she is attached to her beauty, external beauty, and her attachment to possessions and probably family attachments. Whereas male generally, he doesn't know why to earn money, but see, a male is just mad behind earning money. So in that case, for men, it is very easy to leave that habit, leaving money and come to Krishna consciousness. But female has so much attachment to her family. Generally, I'm telling about. Again, devotee Mataji should not consider herself to, in this situation. Mataji's ladies, generally, it is difficult for her to come out from this attachment towards her self-beauty, external beauty, and her family attachment. The male candidate has very easily can leave family and can join Krishna consciousness or good or a religious path. So that is one aspect. And second, like Maharaj, you highlighted very nicely that point only we wanted to discuss that Prabhus can easily live out. Both are there in material, surrounded by material affairs and material association. But Mataji's ladies are dependent on her husband, son, and father, and always remain dependent. But male candidate can easily come out, and as Maharaj highlighted, that they can take brahmachari ashram, or they can go ahead with sannyas ashram. So that way, it is more easy for men to create a conducive atmosphere to remain in Krishna consciousness. Again, this is external aspect, because internally Prabhupada has concluded that opportunity lies on the hands of male and female. Equal opportunities are there. But externally, male candidate or Prabhus can easily come out from material affairs, material surrounding, and male can create a very favorable situation to surrender. And when Mataji's comment was there, that male, how fortunate you are that you can serve sannyasis. We can't do. So these kind of limitations, etiquettes, and social limitations are there. So that way we can say that man has better opportunity to progress to come out from material clutches.
Yes, yeah. I think so, Prabhu. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I appreciate these points. Yeah, man has a greater opportunity. Generally, we do see it. Although, Prabhupada also mentions that all the religions of the world, they seem to attract more ladies than men. You find more ladies at the temples, you find more ladies go to the Muslim ladies, the Christian lady, you'll find that it's more women. And certainly it's true, even in our Krishna consciousness movement, we have a lot more women than we have men. I mean, this is not so much true in India, at least, when we look at the temples, but, in the outside of India, in the Western countries, and I know in China, in Russia, and so on like that, these places, we have more ladies than we have men. Although generally, women are more religious than men.
Maharaj, here I have a question, Maharaj. Maybe a man is taking sannyas and brahmachari, that's why they are less and women is more.
I don't think that's the reason.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
There's not that many sannyasis. There's very few sannyasis. But it's interesting to consider these things. Okay, let's go on. We have to hear about the Subhadra. Keep the conditioned soul in shackles.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, with the unrighteous people, so the sexually minded people, they engage in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment, they again health condition, and later, after a long time, they get the human form of life. This materialistic way of life for the sense gratification of the tongue, belly, and genital. So Srila Prabhupada says that association of materialistic people is to commit purposeful suicide in the human form of life. And in the verse number 33, Srila Prabhupada mentions that intelligent person should avoid such association of women. And also due to the association of the unrighteous people and the sinful people, a person becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses. He loses his fortune, and all such opportunities lost by that soul. And in the verse number 34, it's mentioned, such a person becomes a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. So those who are addicted to the sex life, also Srila Prabhupada mentioned those who are addicted to sex life cannot understand the purpose of the absolute truth. Or they don't have any clean habits, or they don't have any mercy. So they lose the ultimate goal of life, and they lose all the important qualities of a human being. And the verse number 35, it says that attachment to, and also in the verse number 34, it's mentioned the association of the Sudra is condemned, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the incident with the Chota Haridas, he condemns the Chota Haridas because of just by lusty look of Madhavi Devidasi, he abandons Chota Haridas. So he is giving a strong example of how to associate, be careful association of the women. And text number 35, it says that attachment to women and contaminated association of women in the Kali Yuga is big. In Kali Yuga, people getting more strong association of women because the people get freely associate the women. And also Prabhupada mentions that advertisement of women, it's common. In all advertisements, women are mostly seen. So it is also a reason. And the solution is given is the householder, the grahastas, they get the license, like a marriage is a license to mix with the women under the restricted condition. And text number 36, it's mentioned Lord Brahma was bewildered by her own daughter Vak, and he ran behind her. And Lord Shiva's example, he was also attracted by Mohini Murti. So Srila Prabhupada advises that not to mix with ladies, even it is her own daughter, own sister, or own mother. So in text number 37, it's mentioned Brahma killed the insignificant creatures. All the creatures are attracted by the sex life. And women is a wonderful creation of Maya too, so that they keeps the conditioned soul in the shackles. And verse number 38, it mentioned the history. Among the history, we can see that just by the lifting of the eyebrows of the beautiful women, many kingdoms fell down, it's like Cleopatra. And so it's mentioned that we should be we should keep away from such a attractive women, association of the women. And verse number 39, it's mentioned in the translation, one who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and he has realized by self, by rendering service unto me, should never associate with an attractive woman. So Maharaj, these are some points we discussed in the group, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
So if a woman is attractive, then it'd be very difficult for her to be a devotee, yeah?
Not so, Maharaj.
On that basis, you said, associate with an attractive woman is the gateway to hell, right?
It's not so, Maharaj. The men should be careful about the attractive of women, and women should be careful that she should not be she should not present herself so attractive, so that she will be a cause of attraction to the men.
Yes, I think that's a problem, right? Sometimes women dress in an overly attractive manner, just for the purpose of, maybe they want to appear, they want to present themselves as being attractive, but sometimes it has an adverse effect. So that's something which has to be maybe watched out. People have to be cautious of that. Women don't want to present themselves in an overly attractive manner. At the same time, when a woman's at home and for her husband, she should decorate herself nicely for the pleasure of her husband. So, conditioned souls, the beautiful women are created for the conditioned souls, to keep them in shackles. But we see that in the spiritual world, there are both men and women. It's not that women are not in the spiritual world. In Buddhism, did I mention this before to you? In Buddhism, everyone is Buddha. So one Buddhist monk asked me about it. He said, in Krishna consciousness, he said, what happens in the spiritual world? He said, in Buddhism, everyone becomes a Buddha. So what about in the spiritual world? So I told him, in the spiritual world, there's men and women. And there's even families and husbands and wives and so on. But everyone's in love with Krishna. It's Krishna, everyone is pure devotee of Krishna. So it's not that women are Maya, just to keep the people away from Krishna. And so we have to understand that women are also there for the service of Krishna. And we don't want to think of them in the bodily manner. That's the point. We have to see them as spirit souls, that they're also servants of Krishna. And we see so many wonderful lady devotees. As well, Srimati Radharani, the goddesses of fortune, the queens of Dwarka, the gopis of Vrindavan, the topmost devotees are all women. And practically, where are the men? It's the women who are all dominating. It's the women who dance Rasa Leela with Krishna. There are no men there. It's all gopis. So women certainly they're a wonderful creation, and their purpose is for the pleasure of Krishna. Ultimately, they want to please Krishna. So women can also dress in an attractive manner for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. But not just simply for attracting conditioned souls. That's not good. All right, is there anything else to be added to this? Subhadra group?
Maharaj, I have a question, Maharaj.
Yes?
Maharaj, in many purports, Srila Prabhupada mentions about women as lower than man. Why is it so? And without women, this world doesn't exist. Like women acts as a mother, sister, daughter. But why it is say low about women?
Well, we did mention some of these things. We mentioned, for example, that women generally are the weaker sex. They can be easily exploited. Just like Lord Ramachandra took Mother Sita with him into the forest, and because of her feeling, her sentiment, she was kidnapped. Ravana came there and he went away. Of course, he took away the Maya Sita, but still, that's the point, that women tend to be gullible. Even when Ashwatthama had beheaded the 5 sons of the Pandavas, it was Draupadi who wanted to spare him. She didn't want any harm done to him because she thought, well, he's our guru's son and we shouldn't harm him. And so women have that, generally they're softer, gentle, and they have more emotional feelings, whereas men are not so much, The women generally, we think of them as the weaker sex, and that's the Vedic culture is a woman is always protected. She should be protected by her father, by her husband, or by her son. That all parts of her life she should be protected, because she does have that tendency to be taken advantage of, to be exploited.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah.
Maharaj, one question I want to know that, Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, we have a person and a human being. He has as a body and his assets and a womanhood. Which is the more entangled one for him? His own body is most attracted to the own body, or to the assets like money and assets which we have movable and immovable, to that one, or a woman. In 3 things, which is the more binding to him? Which shackle is more tighter to break up?
These things go together. They go together, right? You have the money, it will bring the women. Right? Materialistic women will be attracted. Prabhu mentioned that. He mentioned about the woman wants to be beautiful, and then she'll use her beauty to get a man, and she'll pick a man. That a man should have money or physical strength. Women sometimes they often like a big tall man, like that. Somebody who's really big and strong. They like that. And so that kind of man, even though he may not have much of a brain, but if he's a big, strong physical body, then the woman is happy. She feels happy. Or the man should have a lot of money. And so these things are important for women. And The man has attachment, he has money, and he has a woman. Now, you have to consider, if he has no money, then he'll probably lose the woman also. The woman won't have the same feeling for the man anymore. It varies. It will depend, of course, on the chastity of the woman. If the woman is very chaste, even the husband loses the money, the wife will remain faithful to her husband. But it's not always like that. And Prabhupada even experienced himself that when his business failed, he felt the home life was no longer pleasant, and people were not very nice to him.
Yeah, Maharaj.
So,
Maharaj, one more thing. I just take up an example. Suppose my house is on fire. I have my assets, my own life, and my wife. Of course, I will run away first. Or I will try to take up my assets. Naturally, I feel people who are that more attracted, everyone is more attracted to his own body first. Then goes to other things.
yes, well, you know, but generally you see like a woman will be attached to her own child. If she has a child, she'll do everything to save her child. So women have that feeling. They have that greater, they will take care and show great love for their own children. So the house is on fire, the woman, she will risk her own life to get her child.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, certainly men are attached to their bodies and they save their own self first. And we saw that even, you know, sometimes like during war, just now, Russia and Ukraine were at war. I heard there were many families, there were many, like the women were going out of the country with their children. And the men, they had to stay back. The men were not allowed to go. They were given guns and they were told to stay and fight. But the women were going out of the country with their children. They were going out to Europe, into Europe and so on.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Maharaj?
Yes?
Maharaj, is it possible? We presented it, what our understanding is, but can Maharaj give Maharaj's ideas about this particular point? Body of a man has a greater opportunity.
Yes. Well, I certainly feel there are some strengths in the male body to get out of the material clutches. There are some strengths there are some advantages. But it's not that there's a barrier for women. It's also possible for women. But generally we find it's more common for men. One of the problems is women give birth to children. And with the child they become very attached to the child. And so it's difficult for them to get out of the material clutches. Men don't take so much interest in the child and so on. It's more ladies who are they become deeply attached to children, their children. And it keeps them in the material clutches. So I think men, in some ways, they have a greater advantage to get out of material clutches. Okay, we just finish off here. There's a little more here. Text 47. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Well, this is a very high level, of course. We shouldn't view death with horror. Of course, most of us, it is horror. We're very frightened of it. And then we shouldn't define the body as soul, bodily consciousness, No, nor should we give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. That's another big obstacle. But we should be free from attachment, steadfast in purpose. Okay. Text 48. Endowed with right vision, strengthened by devotional service, and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus one can be unconcerned with this material world. And here we have the real beauty. Instead of being attached by material beauty, if one is accustomed to be attracted by the beauty of Radharani and Krishna, then the statement of Bhagavad Gita holds true. When one is attracted by the transcendental beauty of Radha and Krishna, is no longer attached by material feminine beauty. That is the special significance of Radha-Krishna worship, right? The special significance, no longer attracted by material feminine beauty. Okay? Any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu.
Pranam Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, regarding this soul, Maharaj, like the super soul, does the soul also have a shape, Maharaj?
Does it have a shape? Well, it has a form. But generally, you know, if you look in the Bhagavad Gita illustration, the soul is shown just as a spark because it's very tiny. It's 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair. But when we enter into the spiritual world, then we will manifest our spiritual form. And that's not going to be 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Yes? Any other questions?
Maharaj, may I ask a question, Maharaj?
Yes, please.
There's the follow-up question, Maharaj. You said the soul is so minute, and how the super soul is sitting, Maharaj, in fact. And he has a shape also. We see that Parishit Maharaj saw him in as a shape, and how is that possible, Maharaj?
The super soul?
Yeah, yes, Maharaj.
Yes.
So soul, yeah.
Well, super soul also has, of course, it has a form, yes, and dimension also in proportion to the size of the body. The super soul can adjust according to the physical body. The super soul can change its dimensions, its height, and so on. It's generally in proportion to the body. It's about what's it? Size of the thumb or something like that? I think
yes, Maharaj, yeah.
Mentioned. Yeah, Krishna has inconceivable powers. He can appear in every situation. And he can adjust his dimension. He's in everything, right? He's there in the atom.
Yes.
So he's also in the heart. And he has a spiritual body, so he's not subject to any kind of material condition. He's not going to break anything. He can come out if he wants. Yeah?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I believe Gopichana Prabhuji has a question. His hand is raised.
Oh, really? Okay, Prabhu. Yeah.
No. It was earlier one, Maharaj. Thank you.
That was earlier. Okay. All right. So then we'll stop here and we'll be back on Monday. We'll see you on Monday night. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Ki jai.
Go back to
Bhakti Vaibhava Maharaj ki jai.
Recording stopped.